Everyone, this is Jake. For my issue analysis, I covered the disparity in education. We'll start by looking at some of the risk factors Moreno mentions in our textbook. I'd like to highlight just a few of these, including cultural minorities, non-native English speakers, unstable family dynamics, for example, single parent households, low socioeconomic status, and living in an area with high crime and poverty. We'll start by looking at socioeconomic status disparity. It should come as no shock to us that students who are in low socioeconomic status families, that they live in areas with higher crime and poverty. What I did find to be surprising and quite frankly disturbing was the amount of homeless students there are in the United States. Research from the National Center for Homeless Education and the Department of Education shows 1.5 million homeless students in the United States for the 2018 school year. Data from the state of Ohio shows a little under 24,000 for the year 2019. But when we look at Ohio as a whole, we see that economically disadvantaged students make up half of our classrooms, and children in poverty is 20% for Ohio. An important note on economically disadvantaged students: these are students who receive free or reduced price lunches. So school movement towards programs that are for all students with free or reduced price lunches can skew this data a little bit, but it's still an important statistic. To continue, internet access is essential for students today. Data from the National Center for Educational Statistics shows 13% of low socioeconomic status students only have internet access through the smartphone. And according to Dr. Pfeffer of the University of Michigan, higher family wealth is greatly correlated with educational success. And that leads to a significant achievement gap, as we can see here on the right. This is 4th and 8th grade proficiency tests in Ohio for the year 2019. And we can see large gaps between not economically disadvantaged students and the economically disadvantaged students here. Another risk factor Moreno raised was students a part of a cultural minority. NCES data shows Black families have 2.5 times higher probability to live in single parent households than whites, and Hispanics are twice as likely. These numbers greatly correlate to racial and ethnic poverty as well. So we can see here in the year 2018, 10% of white children are living in poverty, as opposed to 32% for Black children and 25% for Hispanic. These are also national numbers as well. And when looking at the race and ethnic achievement gap, we could see here for Ohio statistics for 4th and 8th grade proficiency tests that there is a significant gap between the achievement of white students as opposed to Hispanic and African American students. Hispanics generally perform a little bit better than African Americans, but the gap is still quite significant, as you can see here. So how do we explain these achievement gaps? Through Yuri Bronfenbrenner's widely accepted ecological systems theory, we understand children's development is affected by the environment in which they grow. So this includes microsystem, which is people and things children interact with every day. Think parents, friends, teachers, the neighborhood they play, and all the way up to the values in the culture that shape their lives. So let's examine how ecological systems are different for low and middle class students. Environmental exposures such as Athens County water, which is frequently under boil orders, may contribute to unhealthy beverage decisions or unhealthy habits. Students living in cities have additional challenges from noise pollution to lack of space. Think about the issues a student might have for living in a noisy city, for doing homework at home, or for attending class online on the internet, as opposed to a student living in the suburbs. We'll continue by looking at stressors. Princeton psychologist Eldar Shafir found decision-making is impacted when you are in or close to poverty. So Shafir's work shows a limited cognitive capacity, which he refers to as bandwidth poverty. Now, implications for students are the parents may be emotionally or physically absent, won't be able to help won't be able to help with homework or be there for them emotionally, or students themselves may lack the bandwidth for a equal education. Finally, through health research from Adler and Newman, we know that families in poverty face a myriad of health problems that middle class families do not. Higher frequency of low birth weight is related to a number of negative childhood outcomes, and access to health insurance is also notable here. When looking back at Ohio, we can see how the environment affects education and the geographical disparity in here. We see that urban schools test far below the state average, as opposed to suburban schools who are leading the pack here in Ohio as well. Um, when we're talking about geographic disparity, it's key that we look at how our schools are funded. Here we see that 42% of funding comes at the local level, and this is data from, again, the Ohio Department of Education in 2019. These are only a few of the disparities in education. If you're interested, take a look at some of these references for a more in-depth view. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And thank you so much for listening.